Hello, my name is Kwesi Ratioma, and this is my presentation for my English 2200 Professional Communications class, where my topic that I'm going to be discussing is Starbucks becoming a success in Europe. Now, before I get into my presentation, I just wanted to say part of the reason why I chose this topic is because I previously worked for the company Starbucks, and so I was able to kind of see and had some insight into some of the processes of the company and how things were done, and it gave me a little bit of an opinion about the company and what they were doing, and it made me wonder how they are doing in Europe. Now, Starbucks in the European Union or in Europe, are they a success or failure? Starbucks is trying to have success in Europe. However, as far as I can tell from research, from reading different articles, from research, from working in the company, and also having lived in Europe for a period of my life and seeing that, they have been unable to achieve sustained growth thus far, especially when you compare them to America, their home country, and also Asia, which I feel is a very important comparison because Asia also is a foreign territory for Starbucks. However, they thrive in Asia. I believe there are three main reasons why Starbucks is not quite there, not just yet anyway, of being successful in Europe. The first thing is about Starbucks is they have a solid system. However, they really only have mediocre coffee. Starbucks has developed an extremely solid system. I can say that because I worked in it. I came in, never made anything but a cup of coffee um, in my kitchen using a coffee maker before in my life, and within 3 weeks I was making people these fancy lattes with the foam on the top, and whipped cream everywhere, and the frappuccinos and all that stuff that looks very fancy and hard to do. I was able to learn in like 3 to 4 weeks because of the system that they have in place. That's just how good the system that Starbucks has is. However, and also the beverages, thanks to this system, the beverages are consistently the same. I was able just to make the same drink over and over and over and over and over again, and we always knew, the customers always know what it's going to taste like. It tastes the same from every Starbucks to every Starbucks. They are solid and reputable, and they also their system is highly duplicable, which leads to much success, or at least here in the States. And there's also quite a bit of variation, particularly seasonal variation, such as the pumpkin spice latte in the fall, or holiday flavors such as eggnog lattes and caramel brulee lattes during the holiday season. However, Starbucks doesn't exactly produce the best coffee you've ever had. The coffee, even by American standards, is just above average. There have actually been many studies done, many taste studies done, where they blindfold taste testers, and they give them a bunch of coffees, basically Starbucks coffee and then also McDonald's coffee. And in many of these taste tests, McDonald's coffee has actually beat out Starbucks as being the better tasting coffee. Uh, this coffee is actually average, maybe even slightly below average, but we'll just say average by the standards of Germans, French, etc. Basically, people in Europe. Most of the drinks consist mostly of milk and not much coffee. The drinks they're really dressed up with tons of sugar, whipped cream, all the sauces. Which, while that's nice, that's great here in America because we have such a sweet tooth here. We really love our sweets and just about everything. These flavors are often too much, too sweet for many European people to consume, particularly daily. And also, to the inventors of the cafe culture, the quote-unquote cafe culture of Europe, they can actually get better quality beverages for honestly less money at local cafes. This being particularly found in places like France, Italy, Spain, but also elsewhere, most of Europe. I think the second reason why Starbucks isn't quite succeeding the way that they would like to succeed in Europe is because they're running like they run in America. However, they're in Europe. Starbucks' solid system is very fast and is very efficient. And this allows for quick service and is highly conducive to the American quote-unquote on-the-go culture. However, the downfall of that, when you apply that to European standards, is that the focus on speed often takes away or can take away from the beverage quality. I can speak to that personally. I would never admit this to my former boss. Well, maybe now, who knows? But when I was working at Starbucks, there was times where I worked in a mall, and we have very busy periods sometimes, and so I didn't always make the drinks to standard. Ashamed to say, sometimes instead of measuring everything out like the way that the system says, I would kind of eyeball things or kind of put it in there by feel. And while I always got compliments on my drinks, you can imagine that, not saying I was special or anything, but not everyone can, put the flavors in by feel, or put the right amount of shots in, just by guessing and things like that when they're busy. And that can actually take away from the beverage quality, making the wrong drinks for the wrong customers, etc. Also, the speed focus, it can tend to lead itself to impersonal service sometimes. I like to think that I treated every customer that came in, no matter how fast I was working on them or how busy we were. I like to think that I treated them with extremely great personal service. However, I'm sure there were times that didn't happen, and that's because we had a speed focus set forth by our management and by our company, that each drink should take 35 to 45 seconds per customer to get them out, and etc. So sometimes that can lead, and the honest truth is, and I can speak to this because I used to live in Europe for a while, much of Europe does not have a quote-unquote on-the-go culture. The Starbucks stores in Europe are also not well suited for the quote-unquote sit and sip culture that the French, German, Spanish, Europeans tend to have, where when it's time to go eat a meal, they go sit and they eat their meal. When it's time to go drink a coffee, they go with the friends and they sit and they drink the coffee until it's done, and then they get up and they leave and do their next thing. However, whereas here in the States, it's extremely common just to go to McDonald's, grab a bite, and walk down the street while you're eating it, or walk down the street holding your drink in your hand while you drink it. That's not that common, with the exception of London, maybe. That's not that common of a thing to see in Europe. At least that's not what I saw when I was living there. Okay, Starbucks is seen as being chic, hip, cool. That's what the brand is seen as being. However, honestly, the third reason is that Starbucks doesn't really offer anything new to the originators of the cafe coffee shop culture. Starbucks as a cafe isn't really considered by many to be as cool as local coffee shops. I can even speak to that. Just currently living in Dallas right now, we have a lot more cooler coffee shops that people would prefer to go to in the uptowns and the downtowns and things like that, where you can actually go and get a cooler experience. This is probably 10x times the way it is in parts of Europe, such as France, Paris, Germany, like Berlin, etc. The exception is that when European people will go to a Starbucks to get a quote-unquote American experience, people, they'll just go just because it's the hip thing to do. It's like going to get it's like being in Germany and going to get some McDonald's, just because you want to get that American experience, just to get the American hamburger. It's not going to be a daily thing, or perhaps even a weekly occurrence for most European people. And this is mostly due to the fact that Starbucks is just seen kind of as more like a McDonald's it really is a McDonald's of coffee shops. But in Europe, that's not really, when they have so many cool other coffee shops to go to, why do they need to go to Starbucks? It's just like a big box coffee shop. And To speak more to that big box coffee shop, most Starbucks locales are overall they're the same. They have the same types of design, furniture, lighting, etc. There's no sense of uniqueness or style that could help a customer connect with a specific Starbucks or a specific location. So in the end, I do have a couple of suggestions that I feel if Starbucks were to apply these, they would actually help them. It would help them to start seeing more success in Europe. The first suggestion would be to tailor the beverages more specifically to each region, and by that I mean find out what exactly each region prefers. Most Europeans and most regions don't really like it as sweet as we like it here in the United States. So go there and instead of just taking what we have here and trying to adapt it there, go there and really find out what they're looking for, what kind of coffee they like, what kind of flavors do they like. If they like stronger coffees, maybe like in France, the French maybe tend to like stronger coffees, or maybe some other countries like a different flavor. Go there and really experiment with that and find that out. They should also improve the beverage taste and the quality to better justify the steep pricing that Starbucks coffees have. I think they should also adapt to be more like a restaurant or a cafe coffee shop rather than just like a fast drink shop, which honestly here in the States they really are more of a fast drink shop. You're starting to see far more Starbucks having drive-thrus now than ever before, and that speaks a lot to, again, that speed focus that I was talking about earlier, but also that they're becoming really the McDonald's of coffee, and that's all fine and well here in the States because we're suited for that. However, in Europe, they're just not suited for that, and that's just not really what they want. I think Starbucks should make a play or make a try to feel more like a trendy neighborhood store, with some conceptual art that is different from each store that you go to. That way, people can kind of connect more with a Starbucks. They can have their Starbucks in the downtown of their city, and it's cool. It's the cool place in the city to hang out. Not just because it's a Starbucks, but because there's something special about that they connect to it.